Hi, my name is Lele, also known as Leomai, but um, I am going to be talking about the depiction of American culture in the reading that we had today. So I thought it was interesting. One of the sections in the article was talking about mouthmen and talking about a ritualistic practice of, using this magical paste or whatever and using circular gestures or just these gestures in their mouths to go through the teeth and like using these tools to evaluate and like look deeper in the teeth to see if there's anything that needs to be fixed or whatever. I thought that was pretty it's pretty strange when you read it. I just thought that it was pretty strange of how they talked about it as a ritualistic practice for this certain group. But I got right away that they were just talking about brushing their teeth. So I thought that was pretty interesting about mouth men and how they use mouth men to look at people's teeth and use these like little wands to like put in their mouths. It's a whole thing. It's kind of weird. But I thought it was pretty interesting that they called them mouth men. That was something that I thought was strange. Um, and I think this just depicts American culture just by comparing one of our rituals or ritualistic practices, which is like a daily thing that we do now, which is basically brushing our teeth to avoid further complications like root canals and deep teeth analysis, if that's how you want to put it. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. So I chose an event with my culture. I'm half Micronesian slash Polynesian. It's kind of complicated. I don't want to take the whole minute or the whole video to explain it, but basically, I'm from a Micronesian island that has Polynesian traditions and cultures and language, but it's in Micronesia. It's really hard to explain, but basically, every Polynesian and Micronesian culture has hula dancing, and their own traditions. But for my family, we do hula dancing as well as I forgot the name, but Hawaiians use this practice too. They go through this like ritualistic practice of making fish or pig, like kailua pork. Basically, what they do is they dig a hole and like they put these stones and they use banana leaves to cover the raw pig or the dead pig, sorry. And they cook it overnight, like they steam it, like they take this whole thing like of steaming it, and if you don't do it correctly, it doesn't taste good or it just doesn't end too well. And then they take this like steel cage thingy to put on top of the pig to properly cook it, as well as the leaves on top. It has to be banana leaves. Um, yeah, and they just cook it for 24 hours, and I see it as like a ritualistic practice because ancient Hawaiians used this tactic to cook their food underground. I forgot the name, but if you just look up like how to cook a kailua pig the traditional way, it'll tell you the actual name for it. Um, but basically, you can do it with you can only do it with pigs, but for us, like you have to go through this whole like thing of I don't know being like going through I don't know how to explain it, but basically okay, so basically you give thanks before you go find a fish in the reef. So basically you're like thank you for blessing us with going to find this fish, like please look out for us, and just basically like a thankfulness prayer. And then they go spear the fish, and then they bring it back. They give thanks, they're like thank you for helping me find this fish, and then they go through their traditions of cooking it. But in the US they just grill it. But that's usually how they would do it back home. Most of the traditions and events have changed throughout history because it has become like an important tradition to celebrate how our ancestors have gone through tough times back in like the 20th century, 19th century, all the way back. and it just used you just there's this event called March 15 or Taro Day, and it's basically celebrating our ancestors with food like taro eel, breadfruit, all those foods that people back home eat on the day, and they spend time with each other just like everyone does it back home. So it's changed throughout history because there's more people added to it, and like more people can come together and celebrate instead of just like a small group of people. I think this change is beneficial, just because there's going to be more generations now. Like each generation is going to be added to the family tradition, so it's important to teach our younger generations to come, like all the younger generations that are going to be born in the U.S. And back home as well, to always remember their roots and where they came from, and to know that this change is beneficial because back on the islands, like long ago, mostly women would be the ones to grow the taro and breadfruit, while the men would go out and slay the pig or slay uh, the fish, or they would go climb the coconut trees to grab the coconuts off the tree leaves, and they would be the ones to do the cooking, and the women would just go farm the taro, and they would be the ones that do the light work. Now it's just a combination of both. I mean, the men still cook, and the women like do mostly the cleaning, basically, or like the organizations of the event. Um, but most islands have different traditions and rules, but this is mostly the ones that my family's island follows mostly. Just like Kapinga and Nukoro, that's basically what they do back home on the islands. They believe that this tactic was the right thing. They still do it, but it's not as strict. Um, and I got this source, like one of my sources I used to help is from catholicsandcultures.org. So I believe it's like really important to keep the culture and the tradition alive, because nowadays not as many adults will teach, but they won't go through the efforts of making sure that the event happens for the younger kids, because it's mainly for the younger kids to learn about and what they do back home. So I think it's important that the adults they should teach the younger kids and the younger generations where they came from, and like what it means to do this event and why it's important to keep the tradition alive, because I think it's important that tradition should be alive, no matter how hard or easy it is. So, and March 15 is one of my favorite micropoly traditions, just because it's just something that I grew up on for a while. So it's really important to me, and I hope that I can, grow and teach my kids one day, or like all the kids in our family, like what we do for this event. And it's just spending time with each other and teaching each other about the importance and the history of this event. So, yeah.